In this video, we will look at multiplying two fractions using an area model. This standard extends students' work of multiplication from earlier grades. In fourth grade, students multiplied a unit fraction by a whole number. In fifth grade, students will multiply two fractions, including mixed numbers, with only the denominators of 2, 3, and 4. Students are expected to create visual fraction models during their work with this standard. Here we will take a look at multiplying 1/2 times 3/4. Before we begin to solve, we should think about a reasonable answer. I know that I can think about this expression as 1/2 of 3/4. In thinking about it in that way, I know that if I'm going to find half of 3/4, the answer is going to be less than 3/4. So that would be one way to think about a reasonable answer. Also, prior to their work with using models to find products of fractions, students will have spent some time thinking about the magnitude of products. And in this case, they could take a look and recognize that each of these factors is being multiplied by a factor that is less than one whole, which means that the product will be less than both of these factors. So knowing this, we know that the product will be less than 1/2 and less than 3/4. That will help us determine if the answer we get is reasonable. So to use an area model to solve, the first thing that we'll do is draw a rectangle for our area model. Then we will split this into 4 equal parts. So each of these would represent 1/4. Now we know that we are working with 3/4, so I'll go ahead and shade in 3/4. And now we know we need to find 1/2 of 3/4. So we know what we can do with the area model is we can take our area model, and in order to find half of 3/4, we can split this area model in half to help us determine that. So I'm just going to horizontally, I'm going to split the area model in half. I'm going to label that we have 1/2 with this red line drawn here, 1/2 above and 1/2 below. And we know that what we need to find is half of the 3/4, which we had colored in yellow. So to find half of the 3/4, I could just circle one of these halves that we just created. So I'm doing that now here in green. So this is 1/2 of 3/4. And I know that because my 3/4 were shaded in yellow. I have split that part of my area model in half, and I can see that just half of the 3/4 is what I have circled here. So now I need to figure out, well, what does this represent, what I have circled here? So when I count, I see that I have 1, 2, 3 parts shaded in. So I know our numerator is 3. But now I need to think about, well, that is 3 out of how many equal parts in this whole? And it's very important that we think about the entire area model as the whole. Even though we were just working with finding half of the 3/4, for us to determine the denominator, we have to think about, well, how many equal parts is the whole split into now? So we can go ahead and do that now. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I can see that our model is split into eighths, and we have 3/8 circled when we find 1/2 of 3/4. And so that lets me know that 1/2 times 3/4 is equal to 3/8. And I know that answer is reasonable. It is less than both of our factors, just like we had expected in the beginning. Now, I want to take just a moment to show another way that students may do this with the area model. It's very similar to what we just did. You would still begin by drawing the rectangle for your area model. And we would split it into 4 equal parts. And then we would shade in 3/4, just like we had done. Now we're still finding 1/2 of 3/4. So we would still split this area model in half. So we know that we have 1/2 here and another half here. Now, just what some people prefer to do, it's maybe a little bit more visual for them, is use a different color and shade in the half. So we know we're finding 1/2 of 3/4. So we could just shade in half of this area model here. The way to determine the product now is to look back and see, well, what areas in our area model are shaded in both colors. So we can see that when I found 1/2 of 3/4 here, the sections that are shaded in both green and in yellow are representing our product. That is where we found half of the 3/4. And we could still circle that here to help show that. But where they overlap there is where we see the product of 3/8. So either way of representing this is just fine. And both are ways that we can use the area model to multiply two fractions.